Alright, so I'm sure as most of you know, Studio Series has introduced doing concept art characters into the line. So far we have mostly gotten stuff from the Bumblebee movie, which is kind of funny to me because I honestly don't believe that most of them have actually been in concept art. Sure, maybe there's stuff that we haven't seen and Hasbro has alluded to such things existing, but I'll be honest, with Sunstreaker and then the Rumble and Frenzy, I'm not buying it. But we did get the concept art Megatron, and obviously we knew that that existed to the point of having a CGI model. Since then we have gotten one character from Bayverse concept art, and that was Widowmaker, or KSI Widow as she is known as on the toy, from Transformers Age of Extinction. I think that she turned out pretty damn good, and it just makes me think, who else could they do for Bayverse concept art characters? There are a ton of characters to choose from, some of which I think maybe would have been an even better choice to start with than Widowmaker. Now I'm going to pick out my favorite ones from each movie, and we're going to go movie by movie. So we're going to start off with the 2007 film, and I think one of the most obvious ones to go for would be RC. She was a cut character from the 2007 film, and she had a pretty big presence in the tie-in stuff, whether it was the deluxe figure from the toy line or appearances in the IDW comics. This is also a very popular design. Generally speaking, it does seem like it's one that fans like a lot. I think this would be a great one to do. Then next up there is Wreckage. He is similar to RC in that I believe he was a cut character. I'm not sure how far along in the production process he got, but I'm pretty sure he was intended to be in the film, but he did end up getting a deluxe class toy, and of course appeared in the IDW comics. He has a very cool design, I think a pretty neat color scheme, and of course the vehicle mode is pretty cool. So I think Wreckage would be a great character to do. Then one that I really would love to see would be one of the original Ratchet designs that was done. I think this one is super cool. It has a little bit more of like your standard Ratchet design with the crest on the head and of course the color scheme. I just think it's overall pretty cool, and I think this would be a fun one to do. It's been referenced in the past, I believe, with a Red Alert repaint, and this would be a great alternate take of a character to show up in the concept art portion of the series. And even though this one might not be too likely to happen, there is this early design for Blackout which I really like. You can still see a lot of what ended up on Blackout's final design sort of in this, whether it's exact or similar, and of course he's referred to as Devastator here, which is pretty interesting, but I don't know, I just think this one's pretty damn cool. Now we'll move on to Revenge of the Fallen, where there is a good bit of characters I'd like to see from the concept art. Alright, so starting off, I think an easy one would be the Earth mode version of the Fallen. I will admit, I'm not the biggest fan of this design. I do think it looks neat, but I just kind of prefer the Fallen that we got. But I think this one, especially with his stealth jet, bomber, whatever it was form, would be pretty cool. And then, you know, some of the Constructicons that we didn't get. Granted, I will admit they look a little goofy, but I think they could be kind of fun to do. And then, if possible, make the crab-legged Overload. He'd be super cool, and generally speaking, I know he's the one that a lot of people seem to prefer out of the two Overload designs. I think some of these early Soundwave designs would be pretty damn cool to do. And that also includes some of these for Jolt. He had a lot of really cool alternate designs. But to move on to some bigger and more likely to happen ones, there is Breakaway. And of course, he had a good bit of appearances and tie-in stuff. The biggest one being the Revenge of the Fallen video game, as well as the Dark of the Moon game, appearances in the comics, and a deluxe class figure. And we heard rumors years ago of him apparently happening and possibly even being considered, so who knows, maybe something changed along the way. If any character out of all 5 of these movies is likely to happen, I think Breakaway is in the top 5. Then there is Revenge of the Fallen Springer. You know, this design did get some toys. I know there was a Legends class figure of him, and then the Revenge of the Fallen Deluxe Blaze Master actually uses this robot mode design as a basis, but I would love to get one that actually turns into the Osprey. I think that this is such a cool design that could be done justice with a bigger figure. There are more neat designs I think would be cool to see in a concept line. It's just for one reason or another, I kind of feel like they aren't too likely to happen, but there are a lot of Revenge of the Fallen era concept art characters that I would love to see. The ones that I mentioned are the ones that I would like to see the most. Now we'll move on to Dark of the Moon. One that immediately pops to mind is some of the earlier stuff for Sentinel. It may not be super different from what we did end up getting, but I think these look pretty damn cool. And then Shockwave had various designs that I think could work pretty well as a potential concept art series figure. There were also some various Decepticon designs that would be really cool to see, including some variations on the Dreads. One that I would also like to see, especially since it is concept art only aside from toys that came out, is a Jetwing Optimus Prime that uses this design. Always really like this one, especially with the big like Gatling guns that he has. Those are super freaking cool. I know this section was pretty quick, but I think that's about it for Dark of the Moon for me. Next we'll move on to Age of Extinction. Age of Extinction had so much concept art, and there's a good bit of alternate designs and even characters that I wouldn't mind seeing. A obvious one would be the concept art version of the Knight Optimus Prime design. I know this one isn't very likely to happen, if for no other reason than that it still looks similar enough to the final design, but there's just so much on that design in general that is very different. And again, I prefer it really. It has more of a connection with the original trilogy design. I feel like it does have a bit more in the way of truck parts, and I just think in a lot of aspects it's a little bit cooler than the final design, even though I do enjoy that final design of Night Prime. And of course you got Dinobots like Slash, who appeared in the toy line for Age of Extinction, but are only in concept art. I think that this design for one of the KSI drones would be really cool to see as a figure. Not quite sure what he turns into, but I dig the design. I just think it would look cool as a toy. And I'll be honest, I kind of really like these alternate designs for Evasion Prime. Then again, these might be one of those that maybe wouldn't happen because of similarities to past designs and whatnot, but I think they look pretty cool. I know this would never happen, but this absolutely wild concept version of the two-head KSI drone, you know, the Shockwave with the two heads, as like a snake thing would be so freaking cool. No idea what it would turn into, how it would even work, but this would be so cool to see. It'll never happen, but I'd love to see it. And last but not least, or maybe least considering its quality, we'll look at The Last Knight. I think the biggest one for most people would be doing the Dragon Megatron concept. Of course, the robot mode would be for the most part the same. I assume it'll be based more so on the concept art, just because there are some differences between the concept art and the final CGI in terms of the robot mode. But yeah, that alternate mode, that just really cool looking dragon form, I would love to see that. It's one that I kind of feel like might happen eventually, whether through official or third party. I know we're talking about studio series here, but still, I do feel like it's one that could happen at some point, because it's proven to be pretty popular and it looks so freaking cool. And then there is a lot of art of various versions of the Knights I'd love to see, especially the more alien looking ones. I would love to have these as figures. Not sure what they might turn into. I'm sure they could come up with a cool Cybertronian form for them, but I would love to see these. I think these designs are so freaking neat. And then you got the various ones that kind of look like warriors from different time periods and stuff. I think those are pretty cool too, but those more alien ones are definitely ones that I would like to see. And even though this one would be more of a new head than a repaint, I would love to see the concept art version of Last Knight Barricade, where he keeps the black color scheme and has a similar head to his 07 design, because I do kind of prefer that overall from the Last Knight design that we got. And I'm not sure if I would specifically want toys of this, but the sidekick character that became Hot Rod, I think there's some cool stuff here that could maybe be done as its own figure. And that is it for the Bayverse concept art characters that I would like to see in the Studio Series concept art line. But tell me, what characters would you like to see in the concept art line? Do you agree with me on my choices here, or are there some that I left out that you would like to see? Let me know down in the comments. And as a reminder, I have a shop on Bonfire where I have a few shirts for sale. If you guys are interested, please check it out. And before we go, I'd like to thank my fantastic members on Patreon. In my average bird tier, there is Schmoptimus Prime and Primal Dinobot. And in my bird of prey tier, there is Austin Gillis, Nighthawk, and Savage. The channel support is greatly appreciated, guys. Thank you. And as always, I want to give a big thanks to everyone for watching, and have a good one.